podcast. It should be ready to go.
Let's have a look. Great, I think we're live, Matt. All right,
We did it.
we did it. Hello, everyone. Dr. Ziggy here from the Australian Institute of Advanced Technologies. We're trying something new, something different. We're going live. So we've just spent like 2 hours at least trying to get this whole setup to work. I'm trying to get screen sharing to work. Matt behind the camera, my brand manager, he's hopefully got it all worked out. So the idea behind this video is for me to read and react to a blog post. Now these CEOs of big companies, Matt, OpenAI with Sam Altman, Anthropic with Dario Amodei, Elon Musk for Grok, and Mark Zuckerberg for AI for the Llama models and all that. They constantly make press releases and blog posts and whatnot. So I thought I'd go live in reading these blog posts. And a few days ago, Dario Amodei, sorry, I mispronounced his name. Dario Amodei wrote a blog post on his blog, darioamodei.com, about the interpretability of LLMs, and we'll talk about that in a second. Now, I didn't want to make a video about this because I had a quick skim of this blog post yesterday, and it's very technical, it's very long. So I didn't want to make a whole video about it because I just wanted to, it's a lot of work to edit it, and I just thought let's just go with it. And it was actually Matt's idea to just do a live stream with me reading it and then trying to make it accessible to the average person. And Matt is a non-technical person. Matt doesn't know anything about programming, computer science, nothing at all. He's just working behind the scenes on my brands and stuff.
I do
So
what's going on a computer sometimes, though.
yes, when I say Matt, save a Word file to me and send it to me by email, he can do that. Anything harder than that, he can't. Okay, so now Dario Amodei is the CEO of Anthropic. We've talked a little bit about Anthropic, Matt. So you know who Anthropic is, what they do, or are you sort of unfamiliar with this?
Anthropic, the guys that broke away from OpenAI, right?
Yeah, so OpenAI was founded by a group of people, Elon Musk included, and over the years, people have been slowly breaking away from OpenAI because their founding mission, was openness, common good, the greater good, to quote Hot Fuzz, um, and it's just not been working out in that way. So people have been breaking away. So Dario Amodei was part of the founding group of OpenAI, but he decided to break away and form Anthropic. He runs Anthropic. In fact, his sister is on Anthropic as well. I can't remember, and Daniela Amodei, I think, or something along those lines. So they're two siblings that run the show along with other people. So Anthropic have, with OpenAI we have ChatGPT. With Google we have Gemini. With Facebook we have Llama. With Anthropic we have Claude, and they came out with Claude 3.7 a few months ago, and it's very good. It's very good, like it's state of the art. Google's Gemini 2.5 Pro seems to be the best one out there at the moment. A few days ago, OpenAI released, oh, goodness knows with their naming conventions, O3, O4 Mini or O3 Mini, O4, something along those lines. It's good as well. And 3.7 has been out, and while Grok 3 came out some time ago, well, in AI terms, it seems like it was last year, but it was really only a month or two ago. Anyway, so Dario Amodei is an interesting person. I do have a lot more respect for Dario than I would for people like Sam Altman. He's not as inclined to hype up artificial intelligence as, for example, Sam Altman is. When he does make claims, he does back his claims up. He's saying that I think AI will be heading in this direction in the future, and he backs it up with facts rather than just science fiction or just imagination or just pure hype. So I do kind of like Dario Amodei, and I've read a few of his posts in the past. So when he posted this yesterday, I was very very keen to read it. So let's go through this now. It's going to be very technical. So I suspect I'm going to skip a lot, and I'm just going to, I guess, translate it, make it accessible to the common person, like people like you, Matt, and hopefully people like you will come away with something, so that you know what's going on behind the scenes with these blog posts and what's happening at the cutting edge of artificial intelligence. Now, Matt just checked the stream. Is everything okay? The sound's getting through okay?
Yeah,
Matt,
everything's
yeah.
hunky dory.
All right, great. All right. I need to bring up the YouTube chat just in case people do join us live. You never know, so I will just quickly bring this down here. We're at the bottom, so I'll move this up like this. Good. Okay. So the blog post is called "The Urgency of Interpretability." So I know generally what he's going to be talking about. I have no idea what the actual meat of this blog post is. Let's go. And you shared my screens, all good? Yeah. All right. In the decade that I have been working on AI, interesting. So he has only been working on AI for 10 years. I've been working on AI for 21 years. Matt, I started in 2004, so I'm already up. Yeah, anyway.
Okay, boomer.
Very fun. All right. I've watched it grow from a tiny academic field to arguably the most important economic and geopolitical issue in the world. Yeah, this is very true. So, when I started out in AI in 2004, people went up to me and said, "Dude, you're wasting your time. You're wasting time. AI is nothing. It's just a theoretical field. There's very little practical applications for it. A little bit, but not much. Not in 2004. So people tried to convince me to not study AI and go elsewhere and do, I don't know, deeper software engineering or some other form of research in computer science. So he also faced these kinds of things. Um, so it is interesting that yes, it went from a tiny academic field, nobody paid attention to it, to now something that is disrupting everything, and everyone's talking about it. Right? There have been some phenomenal breakthroughs in artificial intelligence over the last decade, as Dario says. In all that time, perhaps the most important lesson I've learned is this: the progress of the underlying technology is inexorable, unstoppable, driven by forces too powerful to stop. But the way in which it happens, the order in which things are built, the applications we choose, and the details of how it is rolled out to society are eminently possible to change. And it's possible to have great positive impact by doing so. Right. So he's saying you can't stop AI, you can't stop these forces, but you can sort of control the direction that things are moving in, and you can control the safety of AI. So this is interesting that he's going into this. A few weeks ago, I don't remember exactly when, it was definitely last month in March. Anthropic released an incredible academic paper. It was a seminal paper where, for the first time, we got a glimpse into how LLMs work, into how large language models, into how AI works, what happens behind the scenes. How does an AI software program come to the decision that it makes? So what's the processes that's going through its head to give us the final answer? So um, that paper was extremely interesting because I don't know if you know this, Matt, but an LLM like ChatGPT or Gemini, it's massive. It is so big that it is humanly infeasible, pretty much, to break open, look inside, pop open a bonnet of a car and look inside and see how the engine's working and see what's going on. Right? It's too large. There's too much going on. So it's been in computer science terms, it's called a black box, right? It's black, it's opaque, we can't see inside it, we can't see why the decisions are being made, why this is happening and why this is not happening. So last month, Anthropic came out with an academic paper that kind of lifted the lid of this black box just a little bit. And this is why I suspect this is what Dario is going to talk about when he says the title of this blog post is The Urgency of Interpretability. So they were sort of the first people to interpret LLMs, right? To say, okay, this is sort of what's going on. Now that paper, I forget what the name of it is, but it showed us how AI does maths, for example, right? How AI comes to understand things and come up with different things. And it was interesting on a number of levels. One of them that comes to mind is that when it does maths, it especially with these new reasoning models, you may have heard of these new reasoning models that show you what's going on behind the scenes. So it says if you use ChatGPT, listen, this is what I'm doing. The user wants me to do this. I'm going to do this, and this, and it goes off and does it. And I'm going to do this, and this, and it goes off and does it. And I'm going to do this, and this, and this. And after about 5 minutes, it comes back with an answer. It's like the new thinking models. It turns out that what it's saying it's doing, it's not actually doing. This is what we expect it to be doing, so it knows it needs to say this. But what happens under the bonnet, under the hood of this car, is not actually what's happening. So when it's doing math and it's saying things like, okay, I have to add these two numbers. The numbers are greater than 10. Carry the one over. And then do this. That's not what's actually happening. There's other stuff happening in the background. So that was very interesting that they came up with this in the paper. So,
Just a
but
little related side tangent to that. There's a Twitch stream at the moment where Claude is going through Pokemon Blue,
I've seen that. Yep.
and it's really interesting to see it hit a puzzle. Like when I was watching it, it came out of the third Pokemon gym or something. You fight a guy, you've got to like cut down a bush to get in the gym.
Yeah.
So he got in the gym, he did the puzzle, gets the Thunder Badge. It comes out, and he couldn't figure out how to cut the bush to get out of the gym.
Yeah.
So he's just walking around in circles for like a good few hours, just going like, if I walk north, I can move 2 paces this way and 2 paces that way. And there's an obstacle blocking my path. I'll try using the bicycle. It
Yeah.
rides around in the circles for a bit. So yeah, like you're saying there, it's displaying reasoning. And like when I was watching this and watching its reasoning, it's sometimes taking uh saying it's going to do one thing and then taking different
Oh, okay,
steps.
that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah. 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 So it is interesting that it says things that we want it to say, but it's doing things under the hood that it's not, that it didn't say it was doing, right. So I can't remember now what it was doing with the math. So we want, when we add, say, uh 26 plus 27, right? So we go 6 plus 7 is 13, write the 3, carry the 1, and then 2 plus 2 is 4, and the 1 is 5. So those are the steps that these reasoning models would show. But what's happening under the hood is something completely different. I can't remember now the example that they gave, but it's something like it looks through whether that addition has been performed in the past, 26 plus 27, and if it hasn't, then it tries to hack its way through it, right? And it doesn't do what it says. 6 plus 7 carry the 1. It doesn't, but that's what we expected, right? So that was fascinating to read and to see that there's like zero self-awareness. Like there's no consciousness. It's a stupid software program that just knows that it has to display this because that's what the correct answer is that does something. Well, no self-awareness. So that was interesting in that sense. But anyway, oh geez, we went on a tangent there, didn't we? This is why we're doing a live stream and not a video, because this is going to take ages. It's the first two sentences. All right.
Next week, Ziggy reads the Bible.
That's right. That's right. I will read the poem. Why not? In all that time, perhaps the most important lesson. Okay, yeah. So he's saying, I've forgotten where we went to. It's possible to have great positive impact by doing so. Yes. So we can't stop. Right. I can't even remember why I went on this tangent, but basically, um, Dario's team came up with this idea of looking under the hood just a little bit, not much. These LLMs are huge. They are massive. I mean, they're trillions and trillions of parameters nowadays. So we can't really understand. But they did have a breakthrough in this, and he's saying. Now that we can sort of understand where we're going, we have to be able to use that information and control the direction that AI is going. We can't just let things just go rampantly out there. So Anthropic is known for being security centered. And this is one reason why a lot of people have broken away from OpenAI, because it seems as though, from what we've heard, OpenAI have neglected security and safety. And people have gone, no, no, you can't just go for profit. We need to do things smartly and safely because there's a lot at stake at the moment. So we can't stop the bus, but we can steer it. Exactly. We can't stop what's going on. There's too many players on the field at the moment. We can't stop it. In the past, I've written about the importance of deploying AI in a way that is positive for the world and of ensuring that democracies build and wield the technology before autocracies do. Okay, that's interesting. Over the last few months, I have become increasingly focused on an additional opportunity for steering the bus. The tantalizing possibility opened up by some recent advances that we could succeed at interpretability. That is, in understanding the inner workings of AI systems before models reach an overwhelming level of power. Yes, that is interesting, right? So he's basically saying these recent advances. That's his team. That's Anthropic's research team that came up with this idea. Now they've only slightly opened the hood, so whether we'll be able to really interpret these huge, massive LLMs completely, that's still up in the air. We don't know. But he's saying that it's a tantalizing possibility that we might be able to suddenly see what's going on, control it, and also tweak. Right? If we see that things are not going the way that we want them to in this LLM, we might be able to tweak things and fix them before we ship the model. So, okay, next paragraph. People outside the field are often surprised and alarmed to learn that we do not understand how our own AI creations work. Yeah, it's true, right? If you haven't done any programming, then it's hard for me to explain what happens behind the scenes when you ask ChatGPT to do something. But if you have done programming, then it's quite easy to explain. Basically, when you write a computer program, you say you give machine instructions and you say, if this happens, do this, or if this happens, do this, or if this happens, do this. If you see this information, do this. If you get this reading from a sensor, do this. If you get this, do this. Um, so with these large language models now, this happens. There are trillions and trillions of this. If this, do this. If this, do this, and this happens like so many times per second that it's like I said previously. It's been too much for us to break down and do and go a trillion times. If this, then this. If this, then this. If this, then this. If this, then this. Because AI works at the atomic level. When we type in a word, that word gets translated into a number, and then that number there's like 2,000 dimensions, and it's a really, really large vector, basically, a word embedding, and all these mathematics happens behind the scenes, and it's just impossible for us to see what's going on. So this is why he says that People outside of the field are surprised and alarmed to learn that we do not understand how our own AI creations work. They're too complicated, right? We've sort of ditched all these computations onto these massive data centers and these GPUs, thousands of GPUs connected together, doing these calculations, and we can't humanly sort of nitpick our way through what's going on. It's just too much. So he goes on, they are right to be concerned. This lack of understanding is essentially unprecedented in the history of technology. Yeah, that's interesting. Is it unprecedented? At this scale, yes. At this scale, it is unprecedented. Yeah. Maybe 20 years ago, we had some algorithms that we couldn't really nitpick, but definitely it is unprecedented. He's right. He's right. We've created software. If this, then this. If this, then this. Times trillions and trillions. This is the first time that software has been this large, right? This large. Yeah, very good. For several years, we, both Anthropic and the field at large, have been trying to solve this problem to create the analog of a highly precise and accurate MRI. Interesting. That would fully reveal the inner workings of an AI model, at least summarize for us what's happening and how the decision has been made. This goal has often felt very distant, yeah, but multiple recent breakthroughs have convinced me that we are now on the right track and have a real chance of success. Interesting. So he's very optimistic that we will be able to keep opening the hood up of these models. Yeah, that's good to hear. That's good to hear because firstly, if we start to understand how these models work, maybe the hype will die down a bit because at the moment they're quite mysterious. We don't understand what's going on, and with this mystery, people like to sort of put this idea of some consciousness on this thing we don't understand and stuff. But if you start to break it down, you realize it is just software. Still, it's very good software. It's excellent software. But when you see the steps of it, you see, okay, what we had 20 years ago, this is just a larger scale of what we had 20, 30 years ago. So that's good in that respect, but also AI is going to start to disrupt our lives, our workplaces, and we need to be able to control more of this disruption, especially with hallucinations and all that kind of stuff. And if it starts to make more significant decisions in medicine or whatnot, then yeah, it is important. It's very, very important. And Anthropic are leading the charge, it seems, in this genre. So I'm glad he's writing about this. All right, next. At the same time, the field of AI as a whole is further ahead than our efforts at interpretability. Yeah, so we're just pushing AI without being able to control it, and is itself advancing very quickly. We therefore must move fast if we want interpretability to mature in time to matter. This post makes the case for interpretability, what it is, why AI will go better if we have it. That's interesting. And what all of us can do to help it win the race. Right. Yeah. Okay. Good. So interpretability, Matt. So far, you're following. You understand what's going on.
Yeah, and I find it really interesting, this idea of something that we created and we don't understand how it works. So further study is needed
Yeah.
to figure out what it is that we've actually made.
Yeah. 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 So it's not that we don't understand how it works. We know what's going on. It's just too complicated for us to nitpick it. So there's a bit of a difference in there because if you say we don't understand how it works, and people are going to think it's some majestic, mystical thing. No, no, we do understand. These are just ones and zeros. They're just mathematical calculations. When you type words into ChatGPT, these words get converted into numbers, and then it's just numbers. It's just maths or statistics. It's actually statistics, right? It's just stats.
I guess in a very crude and very borderline applicable to this, but my little metaphor there would be like you get a whole bunch of string, you put it in the kitchen drawer. You open that drawer a week later. That's a knot of string. That is a big jumbled up ball of string. They're all straight and they're all perfect when you put them in there.
Mm.
but I don't know how you're going to undo that knot. That is a mess now, and that's going to take you ages to figure out what's going on there.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much, right? And it just gets knocked up, and then somehow at the end of that knot, you get a good answer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you're like, wow, this is amazing. I don't know how, I don't know what path that string took, but that is a correct answer. And that is an amazing one. Like, that's created a nice image that I've requested. How it created that image, I have no idea because I can't follow that string. But yeah, that's an analogy. Yeah. All right. The dangers of ignorance. Interesting. Okay. Modern generative AI systems. So generative is what ChatGPT and all that. Just generate text, generate images, generate videos. Modern generative AI systems are opaque in a way that fundamentally differs from traditional software. Okay, that's fundamentally differs. That's interesting. Let's see where he goes with this. If an ordinary software program does something, for example, a character in a video game says a line of dialogue, or my food delivery app allows me to tip my driver, it does those things because a human specifically programmed them in. Not necessarily true. Not necessarily, right? Machine learning can has automated things in the past. It's not quite true, but let's see where he goes with this. Generative AI is not like that at all. When a generative AI system does something like summarize a financial document, we have no idea at a specific or precise level why it makes the choices it does, why it chooses certain words over others, or why it occasionally makes a mistake, despite usually being accurate. Yeah, it's true, but once again, right, it's not fundamentally different because machine learning has things like SVM have allowed us to automate things so that we don't have to think about what's going on in the background. We create a mathematical representation of something. We use that equation to to make decisions, and we don't actually manually code things in. We automate things through machine learning. So this is just another subset of machine learning, really. So I don't quite agree with where this is going so far. So far, he's he's comparing generative AI, what we have now, with what AI was like 40 or 50 years ago, where we had to manually do everything. But over those 40, 50 years, we have come up with algorithms, not as good as what we have now, but algorithms that have allowed us to not maybe not be generative, but automate things. And we had to be specific in delving into what why decisions were made. It's just that this AI is so much bigger that we can't do what we used to do. So I don't quite agree there, but we'll continue. See where he goes. Um, let's find the sentence here. When a generative AI system does something like summarize a financial document, we have no idea, whereas oh yeah, I've read this already, why it chooses certain words over others, why it occasionally makes a mistake. As my friend and co-founder Chris Olah is fond of saying, generative AI systems are grown more than they are built. Interesting. Their internal mechanisms are emergent rather than directly designed. Yeah, you've got to be careful when you start using words like this because then you can extrapolate from these words. So this is once again, you're starting with you're choosing to use a certain word over another certain word. Grown seems more organic than built. And then from grown, you can extrapolate things that aren't necessarily there in the first place. I would argue, I don't like where this is going, but we'll see, right? So you can just as much say that it was built rather than grown. It looks like it's growing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's growing. I don't like where this is going, but we'll see. It's a bit like growing a plant or a bacterial colony. We set the high level conditions that direct and shape growth. I see what he's saying. Yeah. It's a bit like growing a plant or bacterial colony. We set the high level conditions that direct and shape growth, but the exact structure which emerges is unpredictable and difficult to understand or explain. But once again, right, he's bringing AI into the world of organisms and it's just an algorithm that looks like you could say it in this way, but it doesn't mean that it is a living organism. And he's trying to equate it to the way that living organisms grow. That's dangerous. It's still software, and you can still go back to what AI was like 20 years ago and showed that is exactly the same. It's just larger, right? And it's the algorithm allows you to make it look like it's growing, but this is dangerous. I don't like where this is going. Looking inside these systems, what we see are vast matrices of billions of numbers. True. These are somehow, now be careful here, man, somehow computing important cognitive tasks, but exactly how they do so isn't obvious. Not obvious. We just can't nitpick it, right? We could if we had an infinite amount of time, we could nitpick it, right? But it's just too large. So when you use somehow, you're going into the field, into the genre, to the world of mystical things and alive things, and but it's not that. It's not that. I do agree that we don't.
On that subject, right?
Hmm,
Would it be possible that hypothetically humans don't have the ultimate knowledge of all things, right?
yeah,
I'm saying that as if, oh, no, be possible. Of course we don't.
yeah,
But then, like, so why not? Because, I mean, AI is it's machines, it's built around logic.
mm,
So maybe the way that we perceive things is not necessarily the path of least resistance, the shortest distance between 2 points, you
yeah.
know. So maybe the reason we don't quite understand how the machines are thinking and stuff is because we're used to doing it like this. But in actual fact, it's a lot simpler if you just look at the concept like that.
Yeah, okay. There's a lot to break down with that. Okay, so um yeah, and this is if you see what happens behind the scenes with machines, you see that these are dumb instructions that they're following. But when you put all those dumb instructions together, because it's we've managed to break up our data that we've collected into very, very fine granules. And then, so a word, for example, a word like apple or banana, we've managed to break down that into minuscule granules because this algorithm has managed to look at the way that banana or apple has been used in like terabytes and terabytes and terabytes of data. And we've managed to numerically represent these different ways of doing it. So because of this, we can in a way get to things quicker and automate things because that's what machines are great with working with numbers, right? So we calculate things, the machine calculates things and gets to things quicker. And like you're saying, it's the shortest path to a particular point, to a particular thing. And yeah, in a way, we might be able to get to a shorter path by creating an image or summarizing or something like this. But I kind of steer away from what you're saying by saying, or AI sees reality better. It can pierce through reality better. In a way, it just does things quicker because it can compute the way that it has summarized data, but it doesn't mean that it's discovered a new reality or it's um, suddenly come to this uh, conscious consciousness that is able to be separated from our being and then operate on its own. It's still software, right? It's still software, and if you do break down and nitpick everything that it does, you realize, yeah, okay, this is very, very clever, very, very smart, but it's not organic, right? It's not organic and it's still a machine, it's still numbers and it's still statistics. So I kind of want to steer away from this, what you're saying, because you can extrapolate into worlds and regions that you shouldn't be extrapolating. Once you go into this idea of what you were saying, a new reality or a different way of perceiving reality, and using those words that are very philosophical and loaded, you can go into science fiction and start hyping up artificial intelligence and stuff like that. I like to stay grounded in software, right? In software, I've said this before, when you see what happens under the hood, if this, then this, if this number, then this number, multiply here, and you go all the way down to trillions of these calculations, you're just like, okay, it's statistics. Very good statistics, amazing statistics. I'm glad that we are able to automate this stuff. But using words like growth and things that you would equate with organic matter, I don't like this. Yeah, I don't like this.
I imagine it's very profitable in this time and age to
Yeah,
use those
exactly right.
over it.
So you do want to. These guys do want this because they want to. They want to make us think that there is something organic in AI because if it's organic, it might grow and whatnot. But it's not, right? It's not. It's excellent. I mean, I don't. I'm not a denier. I'm not a denier. I don't want to say that AI is bad or anything like that. I just don't want it to go into this science fiction realm because it's so easy to when you start misusing language. It's just one step away from science fiction. I don't like that, right? I want it grounded in reality. And it's hard for people like you. It is hard for people like you who do not have a technical background. They don't understand how programming works, don't understand how machine learning was done 20 years ago when I started out, and to see that it's not that big of a leap from what we were doing 20 years ago to what we're doing now. It's not, right? It's not. So I'm not going to get sucked in to this language, but other people can, right? And I understand.
Saw a documentary in the that was from the 60s, and they were talking about their version of large language
Mm,
models and it being used in psychology. And so, you talk to this thing and it'll say, "Oh, how did you sleep last night? Oh, not so great. I had a dream about such and such." And then it would extrapolate from that. Okay, are you afraid of having children?
mm,
Um, and you might go, "Oh, that's a bit of a tangent." And that was just because, there are words that you said that triggered that response in
yeah,
that machine. The language, the database of language is a lot bigger now, but it's still the same technology.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. AI in psychology is very interesting. There's people are finding actually relief and comfort in artificial intelligence. They come back from something and they can talk to AI and it talks back and it actually helps them. It's interesting to see that there is that element in psychology because these things can be broken down into logic. If you come back, someone's hurt you at work or whatever, then these are the steps that you follow. And every good friend will give you these steps. And if you give the data, it's not hard for AI to work it out. But there's a difference between following logic and actually having understanding and real empathy and a real human connection. It's a massive difference, right? And once again, right, if you start using words like Dario is using in this blog post that makes it seem like AI is organic, it's dangerous, right? Because then, like you're saying, people will start to think about replacing humans with artificial intelligence, and you can't really do this. A little bit, yeah, but not. Anyway, I'll continue. We digress. I don't have the chat window open. I can't see if people are posting any chats or anything like that. No, nothing, I think. Let me just bring this. Oh, Jason Phillips is on. Here we go. Is question. Is it your mate? Is that Jason? Jason? Yeah. All right. Let's have a look. Hi, Jason. How you going, mate? The software is still restricted by input, though, right? So even if it was perceiving reality in a different way, it would still be limited by the sensors that it has to receive information. It has no idea what temperatures, and it has a thermocouple to get data from. Yeah. So the key, yeah, that's good. Let me just make this smaller so I can. There we go. Um, yeah, so the software is restricted by input. Whatever's not in the data, AI is not going to be able to learn from it. Now that's fraught with danger, what I just said, because AI can generate and can get to conclusions by following logical steps. But in a way, what you're saying is is true, right? It can't create reality that it hasn't seen, hasn't processed through its data. Let me just read your comment again so I understand what you're saying. The software is still restricted by input though, right? So even if it was perceiving reality in a different way, it would still be limited by these sensors that it has to receive information from. It has no idea what temperature is unless it has a thermocouple to get data from. You have to elaborate on that more. If I didn't answer your question, you have to elaborate on that a little bit more. Anyway, I'll continue. Many of the risks and worries associated, man, we went on massive changes. It's just the beginning. Many of the risks and worries associated with generative AI are ultimately consequences of this opacity and would be much easier to address if the models were interpretable. Mm. It's interesting what he thinks about risks and worries as well. That's an interesting that's a question in and of itself. But anyway, for example, AI research. Oh, here we go. For example, AI researchers often worry about misaligned systems that could take harmful actions not intended by the creators. Yeah, so misalignment is when software does things that its creators did not intend the software to do. So that's a big thing nowadays in AI. So they also often worry about misaligned systems that could take harmful actions not intended by their creators. Yeah. Our inability to understand models' internal mechanisms means that we cannot meaningfully predict such behaviors and therefore struggle to rule them out. True. And this is what hallucinations are all about too. Man, there's so many news reports coming out nowadays where people have hurt themselves because AI has hallucinated, or they've hurt companies because the chatbot that had an LLM as a front end has said things that the client didn't realize was a hallucination. So there was a newspaper article a couple of days ago for a company. What company was it? It was a large one. Oh, there was a policy. So there was a user, was it something like Spotify? I can't remember now. But a user had a complaint, went onto the website. There was an LLM that was interacting. It didn't realize it was a chatbot. And then I asked about something, and the LLM hallucinated and said, "Oh, we've had a change of policy. This is the new policy." And the person went ballistic and just wrote a complaint, threatened to cancel their subscription, blah blah blah. And then the company came out, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. It was just an AI chatbot. We didn't realize it was hallucinating for this, and we're sorry. We'll try to tweak the AI thing." So it is getting more and more prevalent, this idea, because people are integrating AI more into their workflows and their workplaces. Um, so it is important that we try to understand what's going on and how things are panning out. Anyway, so our ability to understand models' internal mechanisms means that we cannot meaningfully predict such behavior and therefore struggle to rule them out. Indeed, models do exhibit unexpected emergent behaviors, though none that have yet risen to major levels of concern. Probably because we haven't implemented AI yet in significant areas like healthcare, I don't know, politics or anything like that, because we know that we can't trust these things. They hallucinate, they're unreliable. I mean, how many times have you used AI and said, "This is just garbage. Can you stop?" Right?
Countless.
Countless times. Count. This is why it's so dangerous to use organic words like Dario is using to try to paint AI as something that's growing rather than being built. Right? It's dangerous because if you start saying these things, then people will think that it's this organic thing, and then think that it's okay to put it into positions that it shouldn't be put in. Yeah. Anyway, more subtly, the same opacity makes it hard to find definitive evidence supporting the existence of these risks at a large scale. That's very good. That's very good. So we don't know how dangerous LLMs are in the world of politics. 99.9% of the time, so far, it seems okay. But then there's that small percentage, because LLMs work on probability and statistics. There's always that small percentage, 1 in 10 billion, that could do something ridiculously bad, right? And we don't know. We don't know when that could happen, how that could happen, because there's these trillions of decisions being done every second. We can't control this. So he's right in that respect. Um, Supporting the existence of these risks at large scale, making it hard to rally support for addressing them, and indeed hard to know for sure how dangerous they are. Yeah. To address the severity of these alignment risks, we will have to see inside AI models much more clearly than we can today. True. For example, one major concern is AI deception or power seeking. Okay, what does he mean by this? The nature of AI training makes it possible that AI systems will develop on their own an ability to deceive humans and an inclination to seek power in a way that ordinary deterministic software never will. Once again, you got to be careful here how you phrase these things, right? How can software seek power? Right? You're anthropomorphizing here. Humans seek power, but machines are just going to follow instructions or follow rules or follow logic. It's not in their nature, let's say, to seek power like humans seek power. So you can't really jump from one realm of words into another and then use those words. You can, but you've got to be really, really careful how you say these things. Now, AI, they don't deceive humans. It's just that they throw out things that are nonsensical or that it seems that's what their internal logic has been programmed or learned to follow. It's not that they're deceiving humans. It's just that that's the way that they've been built. So yeah, I don't like the use of his words again, right? Again. So we talked about how when they did develop this these techniques to look under the hood of LLMs, and they noticed that when AI says that it's doing something, it's not actually doing that; it's doing something else. It's not deceiving humans. It's just that it knows that this is what is the correct answer. It thinks this is the correct answer. So it displays the correct answer that it thinks that it's not deceiving us. It's just that that's what it's been programmed to do in that minuscule way. Anyway, let's keep going. By the same token, we've never seen any solid evidence in truly real-world scenarios of deception and power seeking. No, we haven't, but be careful how you use these words because we can't catch the models red-handed thinking power-hungry, deceitful thoughts. What we're left with is vague theoretical arguments that deceit or power seeking might have the incentive to emerge during the training process, which some people find thoroughly compelling and others laughably unconvincing. I believe that AI can deceive and power seek, but not in that way. So don't anthropomorphize these things and make AI seem like it's all organic thing with free will. It's not. It's just following algorithmic steps. Honestly, I can sympathize with both reactions. Um, there's a third reaction. That's mine. I'm not thoroughly compelled, and I'm not laughing. I'm just in the middle here, saying yes, it could deceive and it could power seek, but it's not deception and power seeking in the way that you're describing. Honestly, I can sympathise with both reactions, and this might be a clue as to why the debate over this risk has become so polarised. Okay, let's keep going. Has Jason responded with it? Oh wow, Jason's flooding us. No, it was a good answer. I'm mostly talking about how I would distinguish between the digital and the physical world. Skynet, how I was doing the right thing, doing the right thing because of an error in his program. Yeah, yeah. So that's a separate question. Um, that we will have to delve into. So how Skynet, all those things, these things are portrayed as not being software entities, not being things that follow an algorithm, but rather having but being in some way organic and having the ability to make decisions like free will and these sorts of things. Whereas AI imitates what it's learned from data. So once again, Skynet, it's science fiction again, but what Dario is saying, yeah, nothing wrong. But what Dario is saying here is dangerous because he's using words that can easily move into the HAL and Skynet scenario. He shouldn't be doing this. But anyway, let's move on. Similarly, worries about misuse of AI models, for example, might that they might help malicious users to produce biological side weapons. Yeah, that's perfectly feasible that they could do that in ways that go beyond the information that can be found on today's internet are based on the idea that it's very difficult to reliably prevent models through from knowing dangerous information from divulging what they know. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard, right? Like I keep saying, these things are so large. We can't it's impossible for us to prevent jailbreaks as it's called. Jailbreaking means getting full control of ChatGPT and then getting it to tell you whatever it wants. If you go on ChatGPT right now and say, "Give me the recipe for a bomb," it's not going to do it. But there might be ways to circumvent that. and get ChatGPT to give you that. Oh, there we go. Jailbreak. He's using that word in the next sentence. We can put filters on the models, but there are a huge number of possible ways to jailbreak or trick the model. Yeah. And the only way to discover the existence of a jailbreak is to find it empirically. Yeah, to break down, to look inside and manually try to analyze what's going on. If instead it were possible to look inside models, we might be able to systematically block all jailbreaks and also to characterize what dangerous knowledge the models have. Yeah, yeah. If we could find an algorithm to scan these large LLMs and work out where potential areas of these massive trillions and trillions of if else statements are, yeah, we could, and that's what we're trying. That's what we're trying to do, and that's what Anthropic is at the moment, leading kind of group doing this research. AI systems opacity also means that they are simply not used in many applications. Yeah, exactly. Such as high stakes financial or safety critical systems. So AI is banned in some financial areas because um, when audits happen, you have to be able to justify why certain decisions were made. Let's say we denied people from having a loan or a credit card because of X, Y, and Z. And you can't go and say we denied it because AI said that we denied this claim. And then the auditor says, why did AI do it? And goes, oh, we don't know. Right. So AI is banned in high stakes financial areas and safety critical settings because we still don't know. We can't get inside the engine of these LLMs. Um, so that's true. Such as high-stake financial safety critical settings, because we can't fully set the limits on their behavior and a small number of mistakes could be very harmful. Yeah, yeah, very true. So better interpretability could greatly improve our ability to set bounds on the range of possible errors. Yeah, he's right. In fact, for some applications, the fact that we can't see inside the models is literally a legal blocker to their adoption, right? It's illegal for AI to be used in certain fields. For example, in mortgage assessments, there we go. For example, in mortgage assessments where decisions are legally required to be explainable. Yeah. Similarly, AI has made great strides in science, including improving the prediction of DNA and protein sequence data. But the patterns and structures predicted in this way are often difficult for humans to understand and don't impart biological insight. Yeah, it's too complicated. Right? There's data, AI, with the data that it's managed to break down, like it's terabytes of data. It's too complicated for a single human to sit down and try to break apart and understand. This is what machines excel at, crunching numbers. We've managed to get data, translate it into numbers, and then machines can crunch these numbers, and we can't. So it's hard for us to do this. Some research papers in the last few months have made it clear that interpretability can help us understand these patterns. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. There are other more exotic consequences of opacity, such as that it inhibits our ability to judge whether AI systems are or may someday be sentient. I'll give me a break, and may be deserving of important rights. Give me a break. Yeah, I hate this kind of talk. But anyway, I'm going to read that again just in case I've misunderstood it. There are other more exotic consequences of opacity, such as that it inhibits our ability to judge whether AI systems. Yeah, if you break everything down and you look inside what's happening under the hood, it's not sentient. Give me a break. This is a complex enough topic. It is. It is. It is. There's a lot of philosophy involved here, and most computer scientists don't have the philosophical background to deal with these kinds of questions. So I'm not surprised that they think that these machines could be sentient one day. This is a content that I won't go into detail, but I suspect it will be important in the future. It's getting more and more important because more and more people are talking about it. All right, a brief history of mechanistic interpretability. So, mechanistic interpretability is trying to understand what happens under the hood of AI. So, interpreting machines, why they came to decisions that they came to. Any more comments? All right. For all the reasons, how much more is there to do? Bloody hell, we've gone on massive tangents. Oh, mate, we'll keep going. Um, I'll try to speed this up if it's getting too much. We've been going for an hour. For all of the reasons described above, figuring out what the models are thinking and how they operate seems like a task of overriding importance. The conventional wisdom for decades was that this was impossible, and that the models were inscrutable black boxes. I don't know about whether it was that we came to the conclusion that it was impossible. It's just that at that time we didn't have the tools for to interpret these large language models. I'm not going to be able to do justice to the full story of how that changed, and my views are inevitably coloured by what I saw personally at Google, OpenAI, and Anthropic. But Chris Olah was one of the first to attempt a truly systematic research program to open the black box and understand all its pieces, a field that has come to be known as mechanistic interpretability. Yeah, it's a very fresh field. Yep. Chris worked on mechanistic interpretability first at Google and then at OpenAI. When we founded Anthropic, we decided to make it a central part of the new company's direction and crucially focused it on LLMs. And they're at the moment the leaders in this field. Over time, the field has grown and now includes teams at several of the major AI companies, as well as a few interpretability focused companies, nonprofits, academics, and independent researchers. Yeah. It's helpful to give a brief summary of what the field has accomplished so far and what remains to be done if we want to apply mechanistic interpretability to address some of the key risks above. Hopefully, I'll be able to skip. He's just giving a quick synopsis of what's happened so far. So the early era of mechanistic interpretability, 2014 to 2020. So these neural networks, which is the underlying technology of LLMs, they came back onto the scene about 2012 with an academic paper on AlexNet, and then 2 years later, the industry picked up on it. So that's why he's dating it from about 2014. The early era of mechanistic interpretability focused on vision models, which is what AlexNet was all about, and that's where I did my PhD in, and was able to identify some neurons inside the models that represented human understandable concepts such as a car detector or a wheel detector, similar to early neuroscience. I remember this, yeah. Similar to early neuroscience hypotheses and studies suggesting that the human brain has neurons corresponding to specific people or concepts, often popularized as the Jennifer Aniston neuron, blah, blah, blah. We were even able to discover how these neurons are connected, for example, blah, blah, blah. Okay, when Chris and I left to start Anthropic, we decided to apply interpretability to the emerging area of language. Yeah, that's interesting. So about 2015, 2016, 2017, I remember research coming out where people tried to see, because when you feed AI an image, it breaks the image down and then it feeds it through this large language model, this neural network, and then they would pick out certain areas and then try to together what was actually being computed and in a visual way. And you could see that early on it was doing very simple calculation, and by the end it was piecing together actual objects inside the image. So that, yeah, I remember that. We immediately found some basics mechanisms in the model that did the kind of things that are essential to interpret language. Oh, that's right, because we're talking about language now. So we started off with vision, now we're talking about language. We immediately found some basic mechanisms in the model that did the kind of things that are essential to interpret language, copying and sequential pattern matching. Yep. We also found some interpretable single neurons, similar to what we found in vision models, which represented various words and concepts. Yeah. However, we quickly discovered that while some neurons, so neurons are the little large language model is composed of these little neurons that do simple calculations, and there are trillions of these calculations taking place. So, however, we quickly discovered that while some neurons were immediately interpretable, the vast majority were an incoherent pastiche of many different words and concepts. Yep. We referred to this phenomenon as superposition, and we quickly realized that the models likely contain billions of concepts. Oh, that's a stretch. But anyway, but in a hopelessly mixed up fashion that we couldn't make any sense of. Yeah, using concepts in this context again, it's just numbers, man. It's just numbers. But anyway, the model uses superposition because this allows it to express more concepts than it has neurons, enabling it to learn more. Let me just reread that so I make sure I understand what he's saying. Hopefully, discover the loss of neurons. We're an incoherent station of many different ways. Okay, yeah, all right. If superposition seems tangled and difficult to understand, that's because, as ever, the learning and impression of AI are not optimized in the slightest bit related to humans. Exactly. The difficulty of interpreting superpositions blocked progress for a while, but eventually we discovered, in parallel with an existing technique, okay, this is getting really, really technical at the moment, and I'm thinking I'm gonna skip this. So sparse autoencoders is all about encoding words and decoding them. Features. Hopefully, this is not going to refer to this again. Hopefully, he's just given a rundown of the history of interpreting AI. Finding that 30 million features is a significant step. Once a feature is found, we can do more than just observe it in action. We can increase or decrease its importance in the neural network's processing. Yeah, okay, the MRI of interpreting can help us develop and refine intervention. Okay, I see what you're saying. I'll skip that. I'll hopefully summarize. Recently, we've moved onward from tracking and manipulating features to tracking and manipulating groups of features that we call circuits. Yep. These circuits show the steps in the model's thinking. Yeah, with circuits we can trace the model's thinking. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. So he's just saying that we've gone from looking at just single neurons to looking at circuits and just trying to work out how information is processed through this large language model, and they've given names to these different things that they've found, circuits and superpositions and whatnot. Okay, so the utility of interpretability. So we've gone from not being able to interpret much to a little bit now, just a bit. The utility of interpretability. All this progress, while scientifically impressive, doesn't directly answer the question of how we can use interpretability to reduce the risks I listed earlier. That's right. So just because we know a little bit what happens under the hood of an LLM, we still don't know how we can use it. How do we tweak this to stop something from happening? Suppose we have identified a bunch of concepts and circuits. Suppose even that we know all of them and we can understand and organize them much better than we can today. So what? How do we use all of it? There's still a gap from abstract theory to practice. So how do we take what we know into practice? We haven't done that yet. No one's done that yet. To help close the gap, we've begun experimenting with using our interpretability methods to find and diagnose problems in models. That's very interesting. Recently, we did an experiment where we had a red team deliberately introduce an alignment issue into a model. Say a tendency for the model to exploit a loophole in their task. There's someone at the door, so Matt's run off to open the door. I want to skip all this. Our long run as
Whole part of the thing. Why not end the stream and
yep.
then come back when you're fresh and then like, go back to topic, go back to topic by topic and then just, break it
Yeah,
down.
look,
Explain it.
I think this is getting to be a little bit too technical now. I think what I said at the very beginning summarizes all of this. Now he's getting to the more practical areas and what we may be able to do in the future. Um, and it's all, like it says here, it's a natural fit for academic and independent researchers, right? So they've got the ball rolling with interpretability, and hopefully things will be able to kick off. And that's it, right? So I'm just going to read the last paragraph and then we'll finish off because Matt has to get going. All of these accelerating interpretability, light touch, transparency legislation, and export controls on chips have the virtue of being good ideas in their own right with few meaningful downsides. We should do all of them anyway, but they become even more important when we realize that they might make the difference between interpretability being solved before powerful AI or after. Yeah, so interpretability is really important for these things. It seems as though these models are going to get larger, so we really have to do focus on this idea of interpretability. And Anthropic have started it. They've done some very impressive work, and Dario is saying we need to do more. My criticism of these articles is that I don't like some of the language that we use. Using words in ways that shouldn't be used for machines because they're not organic things. But yeah, that's it. We'll end it there. That's an hour more or less. I think we've done work. If there's any questions, people can
I think it's
press them.
definitely worthwhile coming back to this article and
Yeah,
discussing more.
Mike. Yeah,
I think it's definitely worth coming back to this article and discussing it more. Like it looks like it goes to a few other places as well.
it's getting too technical and too nitpicky. I think there's no point in doing it. I think in a few days a new blog post will pop up that'll be more interesting than going back to this.
That seems to be
Yeah.
how things go these days, eh?
Yeah. All right, cool. That's it. Let's end it here. I'll just check if there are any other comments. No, that's it. Thank you very much for watching, and I reckon we'll do this again because that was fun.
Awesome. Thanks
Cool.
for joining us, guys.